Clyde Do Something is back. He is going to do something tonight for us, which is basically host the entire show because I got a newborn that's freaking out in the background. So I figured no better than really a Canadian to hoodwink into all of this. Anyway, okay, so actually everyone's saying take your time, and I have 0 people watching. Now I have 27. Okay, good. All right, I was a little nervous that YouTube was just like suspended me again right at the beginning. Newborn suspension. Can it get any worse? Well, it could, because in Canada anyway, there's going to be you guys are going to get a Ministry of Truth. I guess ours was what
It
do
was
you
a
call
flop.
it?
It was
Yeah,
a
ours was a
flop.
flop. But
It
now
got
Trudeau's
memed
going to resurrect
into
Canada.
non-existence. It just got thrown away.
Yeah. So then why does your prime minister think this is a good idea?
Because he's delusional and he thinks that no matter what he does, he doesn't have to answer to anyone. He's had so many ethics violations, and he hasn't had to answer to any of those yet. So until the Liberal Party's actually talking. I read an article today that they're even talking about possibly ousting him because he's lost so much credibility politically that they definitely won't win the next election, so they might not let him run.
Well, you sent me this article from CTV News. Okay, so just so everybody knows, this is Canada government-owned broadcasting, right? So or not. Is this a private company?
The CTV is a private company. It's not CBC. CBC is the state-run broadcaster, and CTV is heavily subsidized private enterprise in Canada. So, I mean, is there much of a difference? At this point, not really.
Probably not. No. Well, even in the United States, yeah, our private television or news outlets seem to be very aligned with the government. So I don't even know. Yeah, I'm not sure ownership matters. So maybe you could walk us through exactly this. This isn't necessarily the newest news, but I should just alert everybody that the week that I gave birth to the latest producer on our team, you were supposed to come on and talk about this. So
That's right.
So let's all just pretend it's still early September and the news just came out that there's going to be this disinformation tracking escalation, and it sounds like he's using some more like global team or policy or like something that was put in place a while ago, that has more of a sort of global, it's not just a Canadian thing, and to use this as like hey, we have a Russian disinformation problem, great opportunity to crack down even more on speech. And I think the questions that a lot of people have been asking about it is this just an opportune moment for Trudeau to crack down even more on people's speech? Is it really about Russia and Putin? So maybe you could give us the background on it.
Well, I don't think it's really about Russia or Putin. It was opportunistic. These have been talking points that if you go back a few years, the talking points seem to all be the same. It doesn't matter who they are, leaders of particular countries that happen to have certain influences, whether it's build back better, great reset, these terms that people are using. The new one, it seems to be getting thrown around, is disinformation, misinformation, malinformation. This whole idea that people are, any news that I don't like is disinformation and you shouldn't listen to that kind of news. That becomes the main talking points for the government at this point. And instead of having healthy debate over issues, everything can be thrown away based on this principle of disinformation. Trudeau's been known to have all these platitudes, even after the Freedom Convoy going out and speaking out against Iran for being so harsh with their protesters. Of course, I condemn what Iran's doing, but I also condemn what Justin Trudeau did to protesters back in February as they were standing up against his mandates. But this is the fight that he's having with the general populace and the public, is to say everything is disinformation that, well, isn't official narrative news. So we want to actually shut it down, because even though we've invested $1.4 billion during the pandemic, giving it to CBC and all the other news agencies. They still were beat out by independent journalists on YouTube, other news outlets. They're dying. The old legacy media doesn't push the propaganda as well as they had hoped.
This was the article that I saw back in March. So this is a while ago. Justin Trudeau says he has a plan to fight Russia's disinformation. And they talk about his using this G7 rapid response mechanism. So is it the same thing that we saw a few weeks ago that he said he's going to use, or did he divert from that initial plan and decide to do something different? Because this sounds like this is what I was saying. This sounds like a global initiative, not just a Canadian deal.
Well, yeah, this is actually news to me. I hadn't heard the G7 rapid response mechanism, this thing. So I'm curious to hear what this is. The RRM.
Yeah. Well, I can read it to you.
Yeah. So the G7 being like the G7 countries.
That's what I think. Yeah. He committed to spending $13.4 million over 5 years to expand this rapid response mechanism on top of a separate $3 million pledge through a different program that will help Ukrainians build resilience to disinformation. Global Affairs Canada told The Star. What exactly the RRM does is not clear, with experts cautioning the initiative is shrouded in secrecy. What could go wrong? It says it was launched as a 3-year pilot to coordinate efforts between G7 nations to identify, block, and respond to threats targeting G7 democracies. Those threats include state-sponsored disinformation attacks on electoral processes and anything that might undermine Canada's sovereignty and security. So pretty general. And you could see how even COVID could fit into that.
Well, anything can fit into this. I mean, it's kind of a that is a very broad thing to throw
Canada
out there.
Fully leads the initiative through a special unit within Global Affairs that analyzes threat patterns and trends.
Well, nothing says let's get rid of bad information like shrouded in secrecy. That's incredible. But it's not unlike the federal government right now. Trudeau's government's had so many. They call them cabinet confidentiality. It's just top secret conversations that they have. They're not much for transparency, and this is what Canadians are calling for. They want to see more information, and when there's secrecy like this, yeah, you're going to get your conspiracy theorists and stuff like that online. But the best way to fight disinformation is to just have more information out there and open government so we can see what's happening. People won't be misled that way.
There was a quick question about, is this YouTube censoring Russell Brand? Did you hear about this? This is just a question in the chat just came up. I didn't hear about Russell Brand getting any punishment. Did he get a spanking from YouTube? I missed it. I didn't think he was capable of that.
I know he did a deal with Rumble, but I didn't know it was because of any bans or anything like that. I don't know if he had 5. I think he had like 5 million subscribers.
Oh, it says 2 days ago, YouTube took down our video.
Oh,
I don't know what it was about. I'll look it up while we're talking.
Yeah, I'll have to see.
That's the interesting thing. I think we may have talked about this the last time you were on, but it's hard to know who is beyond the censorship tactics, because some of these bigger YouTubers get to talk about things that I feel like we can't get away with. But then again, I guess if Russell Brand's getting snagged, then maybe things are changing. I don't know.
Well, he's a target, and I think he's a big target because I think what he does that they don't like the most is he brings people together. He brings people from the left and the right together, and rather than being an echo chamber, which I think the powers that be like echo chambers. They like when people get deplatformed, go over onto another platform, and then they form like this little echo chamber radical group. That's what they want. They want people to do that. But Russell Brand is a unifier. He's the type of person that he can speak in a language that meets progressives and people right of center, just and bring more and more people together. And that's scary. That's scary for a government that wants to divide and conquer.
So, okay, this is a screenshot from the video. It has to do with the Pfizer boosters and mice being used for the vaccine trials for the boosters. So I don't know what exactly it was, but I'm telling you, COVID is still one of those things they just get
Yeah,
really upset
you,
about.
you got to be careful what you say. I know you can say certain things on YouTube now. Um, Tim Pool covered that recently. I think it was
Right.
quite a few weeks ago. It might have been over a month ago. But YouTube changed their terms of service on what you can say about COVID. I don't know if they changed much about what you're allowed to say about vaccines, though.
Yeah. Yeah, the vaccine thing is still really taboo. And it's not just COVID vaccines. You got to be really careful on YouTube what you say about any vaccine. You cannot question them. Okay, well let's go back to Canada and Russian disinformation. So
Yeah.
we're not totally sure. You were saying that you weren't aware of this G7 thing. We're not sure if it's the same as him
No.
and the disinformation board, but ultimately you guys recently found out that he's going to start relaxing the rules about flying on airplanes and the border vaccination requirements and all that stuff. So what's up with, I mean, do you think maybe he's just really starting to soften on it? I don't
No.
know. When you're ramping up disinformation boards in other ways, it makes me think that I don't know, you're still trying to police people's behavior, but maybe you're trying to throw them a bone so that they get off your back for popularity's sake. I don't know.
No. So leading up to this, what happened recently? Now, what they were pushing for was a new campaign of having to get boosters every the minimum 9 months between boosters. They recommended 3, so every 3 months get a booster, and they call it up to date. They stopped using the language uh, fully vaccinated anymore. So you're up to date, or you're not vaccinated, essentially, in their eyes, right? And they were pushing this campaign forward. They even had the minister of health getting on TV and saying, getting a vaccine, it's kind of like your phone. You need to charge it every once in a while, and you got to plug it in. So what you need to do is plug into the government and get a
Yeah.
charge. And so this is the direction that they were going. And then there was a huge upset. So their polls kept telling them, and I compared this reminiscent to when Donald Trump was elected. Their polls kept telling them that they had support, that the Conservative Party was kind of waning, and they had polls that were telling them that Jean Charest, who is an establishment conservative, was going to beat out all the other conservative leaders. When no, the popular candidate was the Pierre Poilievre, which happens to be someone who speaks more in line of what average everyday people were talking about. They're talking about inflation. They're talking about monetary policies. They're talking about these things. And they're talking about canceling the mandates. And that he ran on this concept, and he had a landslide victory. And with them not seeing that coming, which is unbelievable that they didn't see it coming, because, Breitbart, he was famous in saying that politics is downstream from culture, and the culture has been shifting in Canada. Canadians are sick of authoritarianism. They're sick of government by decree telling you what the science is and what it isn't, and telling you that you can't look up your own information. You got to just trust us with the information. And that's really where it's gone. So now they're afraid. They're afraid. So they're backing off of this. And one point to make really clear, they're not lifting the mandates. They're not suspending the mandates. They're letting the mandates expire. That's what's
Oh,
going on
right.
right now, because they didn't have the
Mhm.
political clout or the political fortitude to put them back in place for another session. And these mandates, they're not law. They're not legislated into place. They're done on executive order. They're ministerial orders. It's horrible, horrible law.
I'm a little nervous to read this, but the clarification came in on Russell's video that he misread, saying the FDA approved a certain drug I cannot say for treatment, but really the FDA said they're okay with trials. It was a misread, and he corrected it, but YouTube still took down the video. Yeah, that's another thing. You can't talk about. There's certain early treatments or drugs that you also just cannot talk about. COVID was a very weird, I mean, still is just such a weird phenomenon on YouTube. Like just the things that you would think are very synonymous. Like, well, I could say this, but I can't say that. That doesn't make any sense. Or who gets to say what? I mean, a year ago, I did this video showing how the corporate news, it was a CNN and an NBC video I showed. They both violated YouTube's guidelines. And I did a video showing that they were violating the guidelines. And then they took down my video. They didn't take down their video. They took down my video. Like, hang on, wait a second. You know, you should be like giving me the award, you know, the NARC award, the YouTube NARC award of the year. And instead, you know, you just took my video. It doesn't make any sense. So,
well, I mean, I don't have any proof of this, but I'm pretty sure a lot of those channels, they pay to be on YouTube rather than the other way around.
You know what? It could, who knows? It could be. I remember back when I was in corporate TV news, they were just starting to realize that they could make money on YouTube, and that's what they cared about. So they were starting to put the content on YouTube. And I thought, you guys are never going to do well on YouTube because people don't want to watch clips from news on YouTube. But you know what? What I was wrong about was I didn't foresee the fact that they were going to get promoted by YouTube and basically become an arm of YouTube, which is now becoming an extension of corporate news or just the corporate state. And so they've gotten a lot of help. And so, but they wouldn't have made it if YouTube hadn't started morphing into what it is now, which is like an arm of the government and these corporate news stations. And so then they all just work together to promote each other and whatever the messages that they want to get. But back when I was getting on it and I saw my TV station get on it, I'm like, you're never going to make it. Because back then it was still YouTube. It wasn't like fake YouTube, which is really just turned into like CNN or whatever. I don't know what you want to call it. They just promote the corporate news sites anyway. Unacceptable Fringe says, great show so far, great topic, and good to see Clyde dropping in as well. Yes, always great to have Clyde on for our, maybe we can start doing like monthly Canada roundup, because it's always good to hear what's going on across the border. As long as
there's a lot happening over here. So the big thing right now with the mandates being dropped is the ArriveCAN app. Now, this was one of the things that came in when the trucker convoy took off. So when the trucker convoy kicked off, the last straw was the ArriveCAN app. These truckers had been dealing with all of the restrictions, having to and being told they were heroes for, you know, staying in their truck and keeping the process, everything going. But they dealt with so many restrictions, having to do the vaccine mandates, depending on which company they worked for and all this stuff. And then the last straw was, oh, what, you're going to track us now going over the border, and you want to have all this information on us and have it mandatory. And so many of them just said, nope, done with that. And then that's when it picked up steam and it happened. So ArriveCAN, which was so horrible and caused actually 50% losses in the tourism industry in Canada over this summer compared to normal traffic, because Americans were just, and other country people were just like, I don't really know I want to be doing that. So, and there was big lineups at the borders. People were just avoiding it altogether. They've finally made it so they didn't lift it. They didn't get rid of it, but it's no longer mandatory. It's optional. I don't know how many people are going to opt in, but that's the big news for this weekend. On Saturday, it's gone.
We'll see what happens next. I feel like in our case, everybody breathes, not everybody. There were a lot of people freaking out, but a lot of people also are breathing a sigh of relief over our, for instance, airplane travel mask mandate going away. But I don't know. I don't want to celebrate too early. Somebody wants to know if Trudeau is going to ban VPN use, but before you answer that question, one thing Trudeau cannot ban, at least as of today, is AllisonWinePromo.com, where you can keep my show in business by having a toast to the new producer. I can finally join you and say a toast to free speech. So go to AllisonWinePromo.com, get 50% off of my favorite Malbecs from Argentina and 50% off shipping. These are all high altitude, very remote region Malbecs. So if you're into unique wines, these are great wines. You get a really great price on them and you support my work. So AllisonWinePromo.com, 50% off the wine itself, 50% off shipping. And you don't need a VPN to buy it. And you also don't need to check in with Trudeau. And as far as I know, he hasn't throttled your ability to go do that. But what do you think about the VPN thing? Because it does seem like, my friends in China, that's how they have to communicate. That's how they get their news and everything is through the VPN. So we're what does your conspiracy hat tell you about that? Were you going that direction?
Okay, so I mean, we could go conspiracy and speculate, or we could just look at what other countries have done, like China. So Trudeau, no stranger to his appreciation for China. He
right. We're
mentioned
going to talk about that too in a second.
Right. So he's mentioned that he appreciates what they can do. They can change things on a dime. They have the Great Wall, the Great Firewall, they call it in China, and in Canada, C11 is the new act that is being proposed here, and C11 is basically going to change the internet as we know it. For Canadians understand what Canadian content laws are. We have these here in Canada. So everything that's regulated by the CRTC, which is the Canadian version of the CTC in the US, they regulate how much Canadian content has to be broadcast on any given television station or whatever. And they want to regulate the internet now. And they're doing it, saying it that it is for the purposes of keeping Canadian culture alive and making sure that Canadians have enough Canadian content. And it's then there's the mercantilist side of it, where it's like protectionism for Canadian markets. But what it really is we all know this: when a market's regulated, the first thing to be bought and sold is the regulator, right? So the old lamestream media is what owns the regulatory body there. If you want to become a Canadian content producer under these new rules, you have to get a license as a Canadian content producer. So you have to fit the criteria that they want, and if you don't fit it, you're not a content creator from Canada, and you compete against the rest of the world. And that's the concept there. Now, the other thing that they say that they want to do with this is they want to regulate what you see in your feed. So they think it shouldn't be up to a big company like Google, whose interest is you seeing the best ads all the time and staying on the platform because these are the best things for you. The Canadian government wants to cater your feed. They want to be able to say, we want the Canadians to see this video and this video after that video, and they want to be in charge of that. I don't know how they think they're going to actually be able to accomplish this. Everything they do, they failed at, but this is something that they say they want.
Okay, do we feel like we've covered C11? Because that was one of the questions from locals when I posted. And by the way, just for everybody who's not on locals, at my locals community, you can join my editorial board and post questions and comments and whatnot ahead of time for interviews. So there's a lot of stuff that people want to hear Clyde talk about. One of them was C11. Do we feel like we've covered that?
Yeah.
Should we move on?
Jack in the chat said, did he say CTC? He meant FCC. Yeah, I meant the FCC. My bad. So okay. The CRTC is the Canadian regulatory body over television broadcasts, just like the FCC in America.
Okay, this was one of the other questions that somebody had on locals. If you could talk about why Beijing is opening police stations on Canadian soil.
Oh, okay. Well, so we were talking about VPNs. I don't know if Canada will ban VPNs. That's speculation at best. There's no talk of doing that. But yeah, just like Canada's Trudeau's government's love for the Chinese party, the Chinese Communist Party, they're allowing these police stations to operate on Canadian soil. And this is something that I reported on this morning, where I did a video talking about that. Post Millennial broke the story from what I saw. I think they got it from the National Post. Yeah, there it is. That the Chinese government is setting out these satellites all around the world, not just in Canada, but they're sending out these satellites in order to police Chinese nationals. So people who have left China to go live in other countries, they're these organizations or these satellite stations, they say are to conduct, just your normal stuff that you would find at an embassy. But why can't they just do it through their embassy? These are clearly other ideas. Now, some of the places under question, one was like just a normal house. It was just operating out of a normal house in a neighborhood. One was at a shopping mall, and one was some other business. But what they're allegedly doing is they're going and they're intimidating Chinese nationals, and even telling people they have to go back to China to face charges for whatever behavior abroad. And this is and I started my video saying we opened our arms to these people, knowing that they left a terrible place and they're fleeing it, and we want to be able to welcome them in. We have refugees from all over the world. Why? Under what circumstances would we have refugees from Iran, for example, be subject to harassment from a government agency satellite in Canada harassing Iranians? We wouldn't stand for that. Why are we standing for this with Chinese?
I don't know. It's a really great question. It's very odd. Everything. Okay. Again, I'm painting with a broad brush, but Trudeau is so weird. I can't figure that guy out.
He's creepy, just like Joe Rogan said. He's creepy. He's a creepy dictator. He was a handsome guy. He schmoozed a lot of people, but he's narcissistic, and people are seeing past it now because it's just empty. He's a vapid, pretty package, is what he is.
Yeah, even Joe, didn't he say when he was talking about why he liked him at first that he was like a good-looking guy who seemed nice, but like never really went any deeper than that on policy? Like,
yeah,
everyone's like, he's just a good-looking guy. It must be great if but then he cut his hair, and now, I mean, how much worse can it get? He doesn't even have his hair anymore.
So this is an interesting thing when they do the polling, and he dropped in his own polls of supporters when he cut his hair. So of the people who actually still support and trust Trudeau with running the country, he lost a significant portion of those people just by having a bad haircut. So I think that's a testament to some voters out there.
Totally.
And we need to educate people and bring them back online, because there are some serious NPCs out there.
That's that is such a good point. Okay, so let's go take a couple more. Updates on Canadian compelled speech laws. Any politician wanting to roll back compelled speech law. On the same subject, I've not heard any updates on the father who is being jailed for misgendering his daughter, who supposedly wants to transition.
Yeah, I haven't heard any updates on that story, but there's no sign of them rolling back compelled speech. They're doing these human rights tribunals. So it's instead of using a regular court, the regular court system, they open up these tribunals, which have essentially attorneys working as arbiters, and instead of judges, or they're makeshift judges, makeshift courts, and they're politically appointed. So, I mean, take that for what you want. Sounds like a kangaroo court. It's probably a kangaroo court.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's actually, speaking of all that, I'm going to scroll down to one. Okay. I was wondering what's Canisberg. Oh, I'm not showing you. Hang on. I was wondering what Canisberg. Am I saying this Bergen? Is that how you say your last name?
I think it's Bergen. Bergen. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm the worst person to ask how to pronounce names.
Dang. I should know by now. But I read it, and I honestly have never heard anybody pronounce it. So. What's her motive to not run for leader of the Conservative but remain an MP? She struck me as a smart cookie when I watched her in Parliament during the Trucker BN, which was my introduction into Canadian politics. Do you think Poilievre, am I saying that name? Poilievre?
Poilievre. I was saying it wrong forever.
Poilievre.
People corrected me on that.
P-O-I, wouldn't it be Poilievre? like that.
Yeah, if you pronounce the French way, it's like Poilievre.
Poilievre. I have to
Yeah.
say the French every once in a while because I got a degree in it. My undergrad degree cost like $120,000 just so I could say those names right. So, all right,
All
will he
right.
win? Does he have a good chance? What's with Jimmy Singh? Why would he cozy up with Trudeau? This has got to be a Canadian. I mean, who are all these people? Speaking of Trudeau, can he answer a question put to him instead of pushing his party platform? Any thoughts on all
Okay.
that?
Okay, that's a lot of people to sum up in a really short time. Burgeon, a bit flaccid when it comes to actually standing up for the rights of people. She's got her platitudes, but nobody really trusted her. She was under the O'Toole government, and O'Toole was a tool, and they ousted him as soon as the convoy came up, and he would not show support. She kind of waffled on her support for it, and then it ended up coming out in support of it. But a lot of people remembered that waffle, and yeah, she was on board with a lot of the stuff prior during the run up to COVID. Pierre Poilievre was always talking about fiscal issues. He really focused his career on that. Some people say he waffled on the COVID vaccine thing, but he was just going with what he had. I don't know. I would like to interview him myself and ask that question because I'm still kind of torn on that one. But he's always kind of stuck his guns to fiscal issues, and this is why a lot of people like him. And he's not afraid to go on the offensive. He doesn't go on the defensive like a lot of conservatives do, because this is a liberal tactic to go boom hard on the conservatives and ask them to get defensive about something. And he doesn't do that. He turns everything around, and he's right on the offensive. When it comes to Jimmy McJuggernuggets, Jagmeet Singh, he's a total sellout. Sellout Singh trends on Canadian Twitter all the time. He's known as the sellout of the working class. So he was of the NDP, the New Democratic Party, and he's the leader. They are a union party. He does the Bernie Sanders platitudes, you know, the millionaires, the billionaires, they're taking advantage of everybody. We need to nationalize everything. And people are sick of it because they're all just platitudes. And as soon as he got into power and it was politically expedient, he sided with Justin Trudeau just to try to get a few more years out of his career. And everyone speculates that that's just to get his pension. And then once he's got that, he's out.
Okay. We covered all that? Let's go to, did we do C-18?
C-18, I'd have to be reminded what that bill is. There's so many C something or another's. Is that the
Let me go look it up. But what about, while we're waiting for that, thoughts on the fringe minority with unacceptable views who need to be dealt with?
So I had Marty up north on the show, on my channel. He was the one who started that trend, and it was the hashtag Trudeau must go trend. And people started taking pictures of themselves, giving a little bio of just how normal everyday person they are, and at the end saying, and according to Trudeau, I have far right extremist views and I need to be dealt with, or something along those lines, with the hashtag Trudeau must go. And it went viral, and even some other countries started using the same hashtag, but for their own leaders. I think the Netherlands even had Rutte Moet something, however they say must go in Dutch. And yeah,
Nice.
it went really far, and it's really embarrassed them as a party for sticking with him for so long and just going along with it. And it's killed his political aspirations and in the future at all.
Okay, this is C-18. An act respecting online communications platforms that make news content available to persons in Canada. Regulates digital news intermediaries to enhance fairness in the Canadian digital news marketplace and contribute to its sustainability. Establishes a framework through which digital news intermediary operators and news businesses may enter into agreements respecting news content that is made available by digital news intermediaries. I
So
feel like I have some news on it. Does this jog your memory at all?
I'm not familiar with the ins and outs of the bill. No, not at all. There's so many bills in question. At first, I thought you were talking about the one that was going to bring on the not the social credit, the what is it? The welfare state, the I'm drawing a blank on the term. They were trying to get universal income for everybody. That's another bill that they're trying to put through the House right now. But this one, yeah, I know I'm unfamiliar with it. It sounds like it's going to try to regulate exactly what we do here on the internet. And,
well,
basically
Google's concerned about it, which makes me think maybe it's a good thing. No, I mean, I don't know. It says that the government has proposed the Online News Act as a fix for challenges of e-commerce. While we support regulation that enables a diverse, sustainable, and innovative Canadian news ecosystem, we're concerned that the current draft of the Online News Act will actually hurt Canada's news industry. It could create a lower standard for journalism. The proposed law uses an extremely broad definition for eligible news businesses and doesn't require eligible news outlets to follow basic journalistic standards. The bill would effectively subsidize any outlet that explains current issues or events of public interest. This means that any opinion or commentary blog with 2 or more people could be eligible to receive funds. Hey, sign me up. I don't know what is going on. It sounds very odd. Google doesn't like it, but when they describe it, I'm thinking, I don't want anyone to be pegged to have journalistic standards according to Google. But then the Canadian government's passing it, which makes me not like it either. So I don't know. It seems odd. I have to go back and read it more in depth.
So the thing is, Google doesn't like Bill C-11 either, and that's
it's
the
one
for
to
Canadian
certify
content,
journalists.
So.
This person's saying the bill that's one to certify journalists.
Right. And I don't know, is this a binding bill? Is this something so everybody who claims to be a journalist, I'd have to look further into it to see if they're actually, because all you have to do is say, well, I'm an entertainer that talks about politics.
Right.
We'll see how deep it runs and how much it'll actually affect individuals who do. I mean, we're doing opinion, and this is what I do on the internet. I talk about the news, but and then I give my opinion on it, and people want to know what stories I'm interested in and my take on it. And yeah, I'll have to do a deeper dive before I can give a solid one on this one.
They're saying, okay, so the bill would give the Canadian Radio, Television, and Telecommunications Commission unprecedented sweeping new powers to regulate every aspect of the Canadian news industry. They'd be responsible for determining who is a journalist, what is an eligible news business, and how much money will be directed to each entity. Decisions far outside its expertise as a broadcast regulator. It would oversee and govern all negotiations between the news publishers and technology companies, including setting mandatory terms, which while also resolving any resulting disputes and having the power to issue penalties. You know what's funny is that what Google's saying it doesn't like is that because because the Canadian government will be able to do all of that, Google is now arguing that journalism will suffer. Whereas I'm looking at it and I'm like, wait a second. You know what I mean? They're lowering the bar for journalism and just anyone can be a journalist. Wait, no. That's not what I read in this bill. I'm reading the way you're describing it. It sounds like the government's just going to decide who's saying what it likes and then saying that they're a journalist. It's not. Anyway, it's very interesting to see why Google doesn't like it, which would be the exact opposite reason I don't like it.
Well, from what I hear, I think it's an attack on the Fifth Estate, right? It's the idea that the government is the arbiter on what can be news and who is a journalist and who, I mean, where does that go? Where does that lead us? That leads us down a road of mistrust for everything. I mean, nobody trusts the news as it is, the news that's bought and paid for by the government. Do you think they'll trust the news anymore when that comes about?
No,
and people will find a way around it. People are always going to find a way around it. I'm an entertainer that just talks about real world situations in a fictional way. Everything I say is fiction. You know, I mean, there's always a caveat that'll get you out of this stuff. The more they try to shut it down, the more people are going to lose faith in these institutions. And I think it's a bad move.
Okay, so a couple more comments on it. This is the bill that would shut down Rebel News, and the bill says if you have anything more than 2 viewers, they can consider you a journalist, therefore they can control your content. So we're starting to get a little bit of a better perspective on it. But anyway, that's a video topic for you for another day. You can look into it.
Yeah, again, I have to deep dive that one. I know Rebel News has been talking about the Trudeau government trying to take them down.
Maybe that
That's on so many fronts, though.
Will there be a Dudley Do-Right postage stamp?
I don't know. Will there be postage stamps? That's
Yeah,
a better
that's a good
question.
question. We don't know. The opinions on the Alberta government ordering the Alberta detachment of the RCMP to not confiscate the recently federally banned firearms of Alberta citizens when the national RCMP has directed them to do so.
That's a
Is
huge
this
right on. Right on. Good job. Good job, Alberta, for standing up for your people and not following these federal guidelines. I know, yeah, RCMP does do like state police kind of work all throughout the country where they don't have like their police forces, city police forces. In Ontario, they have the OPP, but in most other provinces, the RCMP, they'll do police all around, but they won't have jurisdiction under this. The federal or the federal government wants them to do this, but it'll have to be in conjunction with the provinces. And the provinces are saying, no, we give you so much money for policing to come out here and do your job and do it on a federal level. We're not going to pay you to stop policing our neighborhoods and go door to door and take people's guns away from them. We're not doing that.
okay? 2 weeks in, and the new Conservative leader in Canada has not raised a single vaccine-related topic beyond the ArriveCAN app. It looks like the new boss doesn't want to scare away all that pharma money. What say you, Clyde?
Well, he has been talking about dropping the mandates, and that's a popular issue. He's also been talking about bringing relief to people in Halifax and the eastern provinces, Nova Scotia, PEI, eastern Quebec, New Brunswick, people who are affected by the hurricane. He's been talking a lot about that. He's been talking a lot about increases in the carbon taxes. So, like I said, these are things that he's always harped on about. I don't see it as him switching gears or avoiding certain things. They are lifting the mandates. He's been on them about lifting them sooner. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure where his stance is on that, but his stance has not been in the direction of pushing further people to get vaccinated. Not that I've heard.
The MAID law concerning euthanasia, I just found out about this. Patients not terminally ill are getting approved for euthanasia. This can't be true.
It is
And I guess
true.
these are the bills.
It is true. It's horrible. And what's being allowed with this new legislation is to allow people to use MAID, and it's medical assistance in death is what it is, and it's euthanasia. It's is Dr. Kevorkian level stuff that they're pushing here in Canada, but they're lowering the bar from people who are eligible for this service, from terminally ill people to people who have mental illness. And well, we know that they have all sorts of definitions for mental illness these days. Depression is a mental illness, and why would you prescribe people with depression a way out? You're supposed to be convincing them to stick around and stay with their loved ones and the people that want them around. And especially more egregious was a veteran that was dealing with the veteran services, which notoriously Trudeau didn't have enough money for, even though we have all this money to throw away at wars in Europe and stuff these days. But they didn't have enough money for the veteran services. But there was a report that a veteran who is suffering from PTSD was offered MAID services from one of the aides at the Veterans Affairs, and that was really devastating to hear that. And a lot of people are obviously frustrated and angry for good reason there.
Okay, if someone says, why should you not have the right to end your own life? What say you, Clyde?
It's not about having the right to end your own life. It's about the people involved, the people who are initiating this. They're putting it together. There are legal and moral issues there, and they're just ramming this stuff through. They're not going through the proper channels and talking to the public about this. They're just pushing it forward.
All right, let's wrap it up with this topic. You don't have an absolute right to own property, private property in Canada, says Liberal Justice Minister David Lametti when asked about seizing and selling off Russian assets. So let's watch this and let me know if you cannot hear it. Okay.
So Lametti, I will just ask you about C-19 and the idea of seizing and selling off Russian assets. The idea that some observers say that is on shaky legal ground. How do you respond to that?
Well, look, we'll obviously tailor the provisions so that it could withstand a court challenge. You don't have an absolute right to own private property in Canada. There are steps that are taken when expropriations happen at whatever level of government, and we'll be sure to stay within those boundaries.
So that's called saying the quiet part out loud right there. That is egregious. So the issue here, and this gets into the Russian disinformation campaign thing, as they were rolling that out, they were taking more assets from so-called oligarchs from foreign countries. Now, this is a tactic right out of Hugo Chavez, Venezuela. This is anyone who doesn't agree with you politically or is the bad guy in the moment. As long as you can prove to some sort of judiciary that guy's a bad guy, you can take his property and you can sell it off, and then use the assets for whatever it is that you like as the government. This is really bad precedent. This is really bad way to go. And what it does is it creates what's known as regime uncertainty for investors around the world. Why would I go to Canada and invest my capital, invest my money, build a factory, build this, do that with it? Why would I do that with my assets when next week, my neighborhood, my country of origin are the bad guys, and now I'm an oligarch and I've got money and assets that can be taken away from me. This is a scary thing for people who have money and want to invest in our country. And we want people to invest in our country because it helps us writ large so much. And we don't want to chase that away. That's the worst thing we could be doing right now.
Okay, I'm going to your YouTube channel just so everybody can check it out. If you're not familiar with Clyde, hang on one second. Let me make this. Here we go. Clyde Do Something, and he's still there. I'm shocked, but somehow he still has a channel.
I'm still there, and I'm catching up to you in popularity. Look at me.
No, really. I mean, you're gonna bypass me for sure very soon. I'm my YouTube channel is like dead in the water. They have me in some kind of category. I'm not really sure what it is, but maybe we hope her channel commits suicide, like the Canadian government is encouraging other people. For real, they just want me to just end my channel. I don't know, but you do videos every day, sometimes multiple videos a day, right?
Usually 2 in the morning. 2 in the morning, awesome. And then a live stream at the end of the week. This week I'll be doing 3 live streams this week. Crazy.
So everybody go subscribe to Clyde Do Something if you want to know what's going on in Canada, which increasingly is becoming an interesting place to follow. Never really was until recently, but maybe we were just all missing it. Maybe there was some stuff happening in Canada we should have been paying attention to.
I think Canadians should have been paying attention to it. We've been asleep for way too long. And this is what happens when you fall asleep. We all have civic duties, and we should all be involved in our local, municipal, and our federal and state governments. For you guys, our provincial governments here in Canada, get involved, know what's going on, because it's never good when you fall asleep.
Amen. All right. Well, somebody says they're already subbed to your channel, and then another person said they just did. So
nice.
Clyde, thanks for coming back on. Thanks for dealing with all the insanity of the producer being born a couple weeks ago and canceling on you. And I appreciate you'd already tweeted that, go to Allison's channel. I'm going to be on it tonight. And then I did. So I apologize for that.
It's all good. Congratulations on the new producer.
Yeah, it's very exciting. We're tired, but very happy. And as many of my viewers know, it was a crazy birth experience. We'd gone hiking for my birthday, and then my water broke right after the hike, and so we were not even in our home state. We were south in Oregon, but it all ended up working out because it turns out that staff shortages at hospitals are a real thing around the country, and so our home hospital told us, like they say at the bars when they're closing down, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. That's basically what our hospital told us. You just, you can't come here. Well, they said if we showed up in an ambulance, they'd have to take us, but it was unsafe. I'm like, well, then I think I'll probably not come. I'm not going to force myself on you and then not have, the care. So we stayed to where we were in a small little rural hospital. I think they only had maybe like a couple dozen beds. They only had 2 maternity beds, and we were the only ones there. So we had the whole staff essentially for maternity care on watch for us, and it was cool. They had horses and cows outside and just mountains out your window. It was very picturesque. It was a great place to have a baby versus basically they probably would have thought I was there to get my appendix taken out or something if I'd been at our hospital, because they didn't have enough people to monitor us. So anyway, okay. Wait, what? Didn't even realize you were pregnant. We had a boy. So we have a girl and a boy now. And actually, you want to come say hi? The senior producer, she just promoted, so she thinks she could just run the show. Come here, hurry up.
Oh, nice.
We're gonna end it, so you have to hurry. You want to put on some glasses? All right, so you can see everybody. All right, you ready? Okay. All right.
Hey there.
Can you say like, share, and subscribe?
Hi. Hey, how are you?
Can you say like?
Oh, that's
You gotta
cute.
say like, share,
Yeah.
and subscribe.
Okay.
Okay, that was good.
Nice, perfect.
All right. Okay, bye everybody. Thanks again. See you next time.